When you don't have 20 minutes to watch a full review, when you're not looking for a how to play or an hour-long playthrough, and let's be honest, when the interest is a little lower too, that's why we have 6 small box games for you. Hey, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co, and today I'm doing 6 mini reviews. Small box games, 6 fast reviews for you. Not really getting so much into the how to plays, but going a bit more into the general opinions. And with that, let's go ahead and start off with Western Legends Showdown. This is a small head-to-head game for 2 players. It's going to be in the Western Legends universe, but past that, that's kind of where the similarity to Western Legends ends. In the game, you're going to have a bunch of locations that you are fighting for with or against the other player. You're both going to have your own deck. You'll be drawing cards from the deck and then trying to play cards to try to win these locations that have different rules as far as how to win them. It's fine. It's an okay game. I definitely had fun playing with it, but I would say that something is true for a bunch of the games we're going to talk about today. In the greater ecosystem of head-to-head games where you're fighting over a bunch of locations, when you have games like Battle Line, you have games like Air, Land, and Sea, you have games like Hanamakoji, Western Legends Showdown just doesn't stand out for me at all. It's not bad, not by any means, but it just doesn't stick with me. So for me, this is a 3 out of 5. It's okay, it's fun. I'd recommend other games a lot more over this one. We have Ghost Love Candy 2, a charming game from 20th Century Games. Ghost Love Candy 2 is going to have you and the various other players at the table trying to collect as much candy as possible from the ghosts. Each player is going to have their own asymmetric card that determines how the candy scores. So peppermints might be worth more points to you than to me, versus chocolates might be worth more to me than to you. You're going to have your own little chart of how each type of candy scores in the game, and then each kid has their own ability, and so you play cards onto these kids to try to activate their abilities and try to gather the candy and playing the cards in descending order of the highest card. You're going to be going through your entire hand playing each card once as you try to go through dozens and dozens. I mean, I think that I don't even know how many kids there are. There might be like 100 kids in this game, each with their own unique different abilities as you try to gather candy from the kids. It's charming. The art is great. The presentation is great. Ultimately, for me, I think this is just a much lighter experience than what I'm personally looking for. I always have a harder time rating those games, but for me, my own personal interest level is a 3 out of 5. It's enjoyable. I think for my own interest level, I'll call it a 3 out of 5, but I will give it bonus points if you're looking at for a family game or a lighter introduction game. I think this game was very charming. Just at the end of the day, charming or not, definitely lighter than what I'm personally looking for, but I think it does have a bit more merit for that gateway or family audience. Then from there, let's go ahead and dive into Photograph. Photograph's an interesting one from Matago Games. Photograph is clever. It's clever and surprisingly difficult to get into. The core concept of the game is you're going to have a tableau of cards on the table, and players are drafting cards from that, but you're winding your camera. You have your hand of cards that's going to be constantly in motion, and every turn you're going to draft cards from the table, but however many cards you draft is how many cards you have to play. The problem is, you only get one winding action. Winding is the concept of trying to move a card in your hand to relocate the card in your hand. So effectively, the more cards you take, the more cards you have to play, but you're still only limited to 1 degree of manipulation. And so you're trying to structure your hand constantly and plan ahead so you can play cards down into your own board in order to play cards of each color in ascending or descending order. So it's very much a puzzly game that's very clever, very unique in the way it's implemented, and ultimately for me, I think it was a bit more complicated than it was rewarding. For me, this is a 3 out of 5. Again, despite all the ways it was leaning towards something more interesting, it is a good game. I can see people liking this one a lot. I think it is very clever. I think the mental gymnastics I got from the experience versus what I got out of the experience, it's yet another 3 out of 5. Most of the games today are going to be 3 out of 5s. That generally happens in these 6 small box games for you. Moving on, we have Velomino. Another 20th Century game on the table over here, and Velomino is okay. It's okay. I'd give this one a 2.5 out of 5. It's not bad. It's not. I think for me, this was the least impressive game on the table today. Velomino from 20th Century Games, designed by Bruno Cathala, actually, it's kind of a trick-taking game. Not like fully, completely a trick-taking game, but it very much has that feel. There's a large degree of hand management in this game, a game that kind of functions as a race. Thematically, you're playing a race, and so you're playing cards down in order to beat the highest current hand out. And you can play cards based on a single card, you can play cards based on a set of the same number, or a set of the same color, and so you're trying to make sure to know when to hold out, when to let players pass, so you can be the final person to play, so that you can then again go ahead and start the next trick. Again, it's not a full trick-taking game, but it does have that aspect to it. You're going to play that across 5 rounds of play, each round being increasingly more important. Effectively, each round scores higher than the round before it, so there's a degree of constantly keeping players invested in the game. Again, I think it's fine. I debated giving this one a 3, but I think it just, for me, this is, from all the games on the table, this would be the one that I'm least interested in playing again, the one that I'm most resistant to being like, can we play something else if asked? It is fine, I just didn't really get a lot from it. I don't know. I didn't get a lot. I almost got, you know what I almost got from this? I almost got Sleeping Queen vibes. If you've ever played Sleeping Queens, that's kind of the vibe I got from it. Definitely a bit more complicated than that, but not significantly so. So I think this is a good next step from Sleeping Queens, but also I don't particularly love Sleeping Queens, so there is that. Then over here we have Trek 12 from Pandasaurus Games. Trek 12 is definitely, has a lot of fun things going for this one. The biggest thing I'll say, well, there's a few things. This is a roll and write experience in which you're going to be rolling dice and using those to go ahead and check off little circles or fill in little circles as you go across the mountain. The goal is to try to either build sequences of the same number or sequences of ascending numbers. So, you know, going higher, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or a bunch of 4s together. And you're also going to score bonus points for your largest sequence and your largest set. And so that gives you a bit of a challenge to go for. And then as you go through different mountains, some of them have more restrictions of how you can place numbers. And also, and this is the kicker, there's things you unlock in the game. You could just play a basic game, but you can also have envelopes full of content so you can unlock stuff in the game, which is very satisfying to do because I like unlocking things in games. It's lots of fun to unlock. Well, I'm not going to tell you what to unlock, but you unlock things in the game, so there's that. There's a bit of a campaign arc where you play a 3-game arc as well. There's solo modes, a bunch of ways to go into this game. Ultimately, a 3.5 out of 5 for me. I definitely enjoyed Trek 12. I think it's fun. I specifically like the unlocking stuff, and I like the different ways you can approach the content in the game. I think for me, though, it's going to feel vaguely reminiscent of games like Railroad Inc., of games like On Tour, and I think I would just pick those over this. For me, this is fun. I enjoy going through it to unlock the various stuff, but then once I did, the actual game past that was a little less satisfying. Still good, still enjoyable, a 3.5 out of 5. Now my favorite game on the table is going to be Keep It 100. Keep It 100, a game by Cut Games, I guess, is a game of trying to figure out who, in a sample size of people, how many people answered a question a certain way. So let's go ahead and read this from the back of the box. You know, let's figure out 100 people with teeth, okay? So effectively, there's a card over here that says 100 people with teeth were asked the following question. Thinking about the past 5 years, have you brushed your teeth every single day without missing a day? Ooh. Oh, that's interesting. So the question is, out of 100 people with teeth, how many of them answer that over the past 5 years, they've brushed their teeth every single day without missing a single day? I'd guess maybe 42. Like, it can't be that many. Like, 5 years is a long time. You travel at all and like that whole thing can go into disarray. I don't know. And the number is 69. According to the back of the box, the number over here is 69 people. Now, the goal of this over here is you're trying to put these cards, you don't actually have to get the answer right, you're trying to put these into a number line. So as you add cards to this number line, you're effectively making that line larger and larger. So you're trying to figure out, not with exact precision, but rather a bunch of questions. Let's do another question. I want to do another question over here. Okay, the other ones I can't actually see over here without going to the box. We're going to do another question. These next few I'm not going to reveal to you because you'll have to get the game to get these next few. The next few are going to be, let's grab a selection of cards over here, if I can get them out. I can't get them out. I can't get them out. We got them out. So, over here, 100 sports fans were asked, will you always root for your favorite teams no matter how poorly they perform? An interesting question. What percentage of people out of 100 people would always do that? We have 100 people whose parents thought they were cool. Did you ever host a party that your parents didn't know about? 100 people under 21. Do you cringe at your past behavior? Dear Lord, I hope so. But either way, you're trying to answer these questions over here as you go through it, and they're all given from a sense of surveys. So this is going to be very, very reminiscent to a game called Timeline. If you ever played Timeline, you're trying to place cards into a timeline of when certain things were invented, discovered, found, all that kind of thing. You're doing a similar concept here with different scoring rules, but different scoring rules to the game, but ultimately you're trying to place cards into a number line that develops as you add more and more cards. So that's kind of the how to play. I went into this the most because I kind of like this one the most. To me, this is going to be a game that's just shy of a 4, which ultimately was going to be a 3.5. I did debate giving this one a 4, and I'm not, for 2 reasons. The first is that the rules of this game goes with a very similar concept to Timeline, which I like. And in fact, to the point that I stopped playing with the basic rules of how this game plays, and instead just started playing Timeline with these cards instead. I think they tried going with different rules from Timeline to stand out, to be different, and that's great, except Timeline to me was just more elegant in the simplicity of it. And again, the core concept is very much present. There's just some small ways that the game actually implements those rules that I think Timeline is more elegant, and I appreciate and enjoy Timeline more in the way that I just took this game and used Timeline's rules while using the cards from this game. The second thing is going to be that the cards questions are all over the place. Now, this is going to be one of those things where, at the end of the day, I think it's hard to not talk about this without in some way I think the content for these cards is all over the place in terms of most of them being very, very interesting questions, but a lot of them being content that I would say is less family friendly. So to me, a lot of this stuff, and I don't think it's to be very clear, to be very, very specific, this is not Cards Against Humanity style humor. This is not intentionally leaning into the offensive, but I think it is leaning into, like, there's lots of questions about sex in the game. Like, you know, how often did this... I don't want to get into it. It's not offensive for the sake of offensive. It is arguably educational, but educational that I'm not going to play with my 6-year-old either. So I think that a lot of the questions in the game kind of pushed it a bit into less to what I would personally pull out and play at most events, opportunities, or whatnot. Because again, it's Cards Against Humanity. It's adult content without trying to be intentionally offensive, if that makes sense. And so that is another aspect that I think that is not a bad thing in of itself, but it means it's less likely to hit my table unless I go through the game and create out those cards. So ultimately this one was like close to a 4 for me. Like, I really like Timeline, and this felt like almost a more social, interesting element of Timeline, but it does hold back just a drop, so still gonna be a 3.5 out of 5, but I did want you to know that it got close to that 4. It did. I just ultimately just didn't go with that. And so that's what we have over here. We have 6 small box game reviews. One over here that I think this one's actually sticking around for a bit. I might go through and curate the cards and figure it out. And these others over here, they're all fine. I went through Trek 12, it definitely did. And the rest, you know, I got my plays of them, and I think I'm ready to move on from them. And that is going to be 6 small box game reviews. Until next time, I'm Alex Radcliffe from Board Game Co. I hope you enjoyed this video. And as always, I hope you have a good one.